Hello and welcome to Tabletop Bob. My name is Bob and I want to thank you for checking out my channel. If you're new here, this is my creative outlet for Dungeons & Dragons. I create videos and I live stream my 5th edition games every week here on Twitch and YouTube. I have multiple campaigns that I suggest you check out. There are playlists for each of them on my channel's main page, and I will leave links for them down below. Now this video is a first in a new series that I am calling a DM's Guide to Descent into Avernus. I began my channel by live streaming my games of Descent into Avernus here on YouTube. However, I only got to record the final leg of my adventure. There's about 7 episodes, including a really long 7.5-hour epic finale that you can check out if you have a day to kill. But ultimately, this campaign was one of the most fun and intense games that I've ever ran as a dungeon master. I really love this campaign, and I want to put my experience out there so that other people can avoid some of the pitfalls that this campaign does have. There's no such thing as a perfect adventure module. In fact, all of the Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition modules that are created by Wizards of the Coast all have their own problems, and Avernus is no different. But I think that this campaign does have the ability to be one of the most exciting games that you will run. By no means do I consider myself an expert on this, but I have been playing D&D for over 20 years, and I've DM'd quite a few of these adventure modules from Wizards of the Coast before. So I figured that if anyone is planning on running this for their group, a series where I go through the book encounter by encounter and kind of give a general overview as well as my insights on the area, how to make it better, would be a very helpful tool for DMs to have, whether you're a new DM or you're a veteran. And I think if you're like most people and you prefer a multi-sensory approach to learning, then this is going to be very helpful because it can be a daunting task to read through an adventure module. Avernus is over 250 pages. That can be quite a bit of reading to go through before you start playing a game. You can use this video almost like a pre-reading. That way, when you go through the encounters in the book, you kind of know what to expect. I also think that if you have read the encounters already, then this could be a way to reinforce those ideas and also get some insight as to how another DM has run it. I used to watch a lot of videos to get inspiration for how to run these modules, but I think that a series where I go through and explain it would be more helpful than watching a 3-hour-long episode. And once we get to the part where I started to record my games with my group, then I will definitely include video clips to highlight the examples that I'm giving. All right, enough of my ranting. So let's talk about the overview of the story. This first video is going to talk mostly about the structure and the locations and give a general overview of the entire book. Okay, first step, what to read. You definitely don't need to read the whole book before running any of these adventure modules, and I don't think that you should read the entire Descent into Avernus book before you play this game. I don't think that it is really possible unless you have a ton of free time. I know that a lot of people have, commitments for their job, family. It's just impossible to go through and read this book cover to cover. I also don't think it's that helpful because I notice that when I read encounters, I constantly have to flip back and forth through maps and jot down notes. It's not something you can read like a novel. So I don't think going through and just reading, unless you have the time to do it and you want to do it, is something you have to do. What you should do is you should read every chapter summary. I think that's a good start. They're not that long. Most of the chapter summaries are about 2 pages. Maybe some of them are a little longer. The only one that is extremely long for a chapter summary is the Avernus chapter, which is about 7 pages. But again, it's more of the rules for the environment in Avernus. You don't need to necessarily read through thoroughly to understand the story. There is a general overview of the entire campaign as well, which we will be referencing today. That's on page 5 and 6 of the book, but it gives a brief summary. And it also gives like a flow chart for you to go through. But most people say that may be one of the downsides of this adventure, is that it is more linear and railroady. All right, step 2, let's talk about the story. I think that this story is perfect for what it needs, and there's just great opportunities for role-playing and storytelling from you and the group. So to really understand where this story comes from, we have to start by going back about 150 years before the start of the adventure. On the plain of Mount Celestia, the angel Zariel has been disagreeing with other angels and the gods because she wants to take the fight to the devils. She felt that it was the responsibility of the angels to go out and seek evil and destroy it, rather than sit back and be reactionary. The problem with this is that Zariel doesn't have too much backup in Mount Celestia, so she goes to a city on the Forgotten Realms called Elturel. Elturel is a city, a holy city. When Zariel appears, she convinces a group of them to side with her and agree to fight in this holy war that she's destined to be a part of. She creates an army. This army is called the Hell Riders because they are preparing to go into hell to fight demons and devils. Unfortunately for these Hell Riders, they are no match for the evil forces in Avernus. Once they get to hell and start to fight the devils, they realize that they are outmatched and they realize that they have to run or else they're all going to be slaughtered. There's a bit of betrayal here. Some of Zariel's officers leave her high and dry, and once they get back to Elturel, they are met with shame and guilt. Zariel's army is defeated, and Zariel herself is defeated. However, she's not killed. Asmodeus, who is the overseer of the entire Nine Hells, doesn't decide to kill her. In fact, he has a devious plot to turn her and make Zariel work for him. He puts Zariel as the commander of Avernus, supplanting the former ruler, Bel, which also leads to a nice plot device there, how you can see that Bel and Zariel kind of hate each other from the start. We'll get more into Bel later in the book. Once Zariel takes up the mantle of ruler of Avernus, she decides to really think about how she's going to get revenge on those Hell Riders who betrayed her. And she waits for almost 100 years to enact this revenge. After a vampire takes over the city of Elturel in the year 1444, the then ruler, Thavius Krieg, a kind of a holy figure, prays to any god or any entity that will help Elturel in this time. Zariel shows up and they make an infernal deal. Thavius Krieg promises to sell not only his soul, but the soul of every single citizen of Elturel. In exchange, Zariel is going to get rid of the vampire for him. She places a special sun, a star basically, that is called the Companion. It's very strange that there's literally a sun hanging over this one city. It's like its own special star. And this special sun shines brightly and gets rid of the vampires. The city is saved, and Thavius Krieg is basically considered to be a hero. 50 years later is when Zariel will come back to claim her part of the deal and take Elturel down to hell for herself. She's going to use these souls and the people that are dragged down to be part of her army and fight the demons in the Blood War. And that's really where the story starts. The city of Elturel is literally erased from the Forgotten Realms. It is lifted. There's a giant crater in the floor where the city used to be, and it just disappears. All the people that were with it, gone. So that's what will start the story. The characters will be either from Baldur's Gate or headed to Baldur's Gate, where they see refugees from Elturel, the neighboring city, trying to enter into the Basilisk Gate, one of the entrances to Baldur's Gate. If the characters want to get into the city, they basically have to help the Flaming Fist Captain, Zaj, and then that's where the story really takes off from there. I'm not going to go into all the specifics of this first chapter because we're going to have a video on that, but that's how the characters will get involved in the storyline and how they'll start to figure out the clues as to what happened to Elturel. So switching over to the kind of the overview, the flow chart of this book, you can see here, I've put it up on the screen. Once the city is, Elturel is taken off the map, the characters go through this chapter by chapter. The first chapter is called The Tale of Two Cities. They're pressed into service by the Flaming Fist to seek out and destroy these cultists. The cultists seem to be just a nuisance. They're taking citizens and they've got plans that they're making, but there's no real connection to Zariel just yet. The characters will find out what their connection is. In fact, there's a family in Baldur's Gate called the Vanthampers who are kind of spearheading this cultist rise in the city, and it's actually with a purpose. They have also made a deal with Zariel. They are going to try to bring Baldur's Gate into Avernus next. So this is kind of a trend here. Zariel's trying to take cities from the Forgotten Realms, bring them back to Avernus so that she can fuel her blood war. Once the characters find out what happens to the Vanthampers and Thavius Cree, once they find out what deals were made, they will go to Candlekeep, a place where they can do some studying on Avernus and get some help from a tiefling warlock there, where they'll find a way to get into Avernus. Once they get into Avernus and they're transported there, they will find a way to get there in Candlekeep. Once they get into Avernus, they're transported to the city El Terrell. So this is a really cool part of the book because El Terrell is basically this floating city being dragged down by chains, and they have to figure out what's going on in the city. There might be survivors, so they spend some time in the city itself before descending even further to the floor of Avernus. Once they find out who is alive and they talk with some of the survivors, they will eventually head on down to the floor of Avernus and explore this first layer of the Nine Hells thoroughly. This is probably the biggest section of the book, chapter 3. They have so many options and so many directions to go in, but they will kind of wander around and find out how to free the city. The goal at this point is to bring El Terrell back up to the material plane. Ultimately, the characters are going to find out that they need to get a sword, the Sword of Zariel. When she was an angel, that was her weapon of choice. Since she became a devil lord, she basically has been using a hammer, and she's got other worldly powers. So she's very potent without her sword, but the sword is something that they think will be able to either defeat her or be used to free the city in some way, maybe break those chains and bring it back up to the material plane. The final chapter is Escape from Avernus. The group is going to have a final encounter with Zariel, and they're going to have to decide, do we kill Zariel and try to free the city, take the city back, or do we try to redeem Zariel, which is actually a very viable option, and then have Zariel release the city. But there are about half a dozen other ways that this could end, and ways that they could bring the city back to the Forgotten Realms. All right, so that's the general overview of the story of Descent into Avernus. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I think that this series will be very helpful. I know that the adventure came out over a year ago, but it took quite some time to play through it. So I'm hoping to get these videos out pretty quickly so that you can catch up. We can catch up to where your campaign is. If you like this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. You can hit the bell icon for notifications whenever I drop a new video. If you have any questions or comments down below, tell me your thoughts, and you can also tell me what you've done with your campaign. I'll see you all on the tabletop. Bye.